pocket what I need to pay is the electrical, the plumbing, the front step, the back step, getting the skirting under the mobile home. All in, that cost me about $6,000. I had 4 to start with. I only spent 2 out of my pocket. Merry Christmas, daughter. Got the mobile home sold for her for $23,000 cash.
What's up, Forte community? This your girl G Coleman, CEO and founder of Brown Skin Girl, located in Waldorf, Maryland, and Dallas, Texas.
How do you like your grits?
Sugar. You put sugar in your grits.
You put sugar. We starting off the podcast line. That's what.
So my plaque, I got a Beyonce plaque. You know what I'm saying? So we had two number ones, right? But then the other plaque I got is for Lil Nas X. So Lil Nas X. I'll show it to you.
What's up, world? This is your favorite chef. Chef X is in the build. I've worked with some of the most amazing talents in the world. Cardi B, Offset, Negative Style, Your Money Bag, Eddie Murphy, you name it, I've done it. And I just want to say shout out to the Forte podcast.
The types of assets that I purchase are multifamily apartment buildings, right? So I'm typically looking at buildings, complexes that are 100 units or more. The largest that I've ever been a part of is right at 300 units.
Come on. Anything you do that's worth succeeding, you always got to take a step down to go up. Mm-hmm. Even if you're going to go win the lottery, you got to take a deficit of $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, however much you spend it on a lottery. So your bank account takes a deduction before you shoot up. So before you shoot up to $20, $30 million, your bank account needs to take a deficit. Whether it's gas to go to these meetup.com locations, whether it's to go put on a suit or buy a suit if you don't have a suit, to be able to be presentable in circles, right? Or to get a laptop or to get a printer. Like, it's always going to be deduction before you see a production.
I want you to know that if you have a desire to be great, yes, the greatest among you is a servant.
I'm Bo Wheeler, owner of Arthur Wheeler Experience Company, and y'all are tuned in to the Forte Podcast.
What's up? Welcome to the Forte Podcast. I'm your co-host, Dominic F.
And I'm your co-host, Random on Fiston.
And we are here to dive into your lane of greatness to discover what comes easy for you that may not be easy for all of us.
Everyone's a genius from the 9-to-5 employee to the Fortune 500 billionaire. We're here to highlight those attributes through dialogue and interviews with what?
Some amazing interviews with amazing guests.
Yes,
I got
sir.
one question for you.
What's up, bro?
What's your forte?
Let's go.
Hey, bro.
What up, man?
I don't know if it's your age.
What's
This
up?
2 weeks in a row, man. You'd have done that, man.
Nah, the music was low, bro. I couldn't tell if you were still working trying to get it up, but it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Hey,
Yeah.
this is Raw Uncut Forte Podcast.
Raw, uncut, Forte Podcast, Blooper City. Bro, the bloopers for the past 3-4 episodes, though, it's all you, brother. It's all you. So.
It has not been on me. It has not been on me.
Yeah.
And that one doesn't even count. We were in sync on what music meant as far as if it's ready to
That's
go.
a fact.
But anyway.
That's a fact. I give you that. But today, y'all, we have another fire episode. Listen, we got our sister up here today, man, and she has been holding us down for quite some time. And you're going to learn what her forte is, what she does so very well, how she helps us out to alleviate a lot of stress, right? And not just us, but I'm just saying it just feels special because she does help us out. But she helps so many different people. And so I'm going to bring the one and the only Angela Turntine to the Forte Podcast.
Hello.
Sister, what's going on? Listen, we are so glad that you're here. And we just want you to introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are and what's your forte.
My name is Angela Turntine, and I'm the owner of Turntine Insurance Agency, Inc. in Suffolk, Virginia. And my forte is service. So I do it well.
Okay. Service.
Yeah, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people
Wow.
ask me, like, why are you, you became an insurance agent? I mean, that's something you dreamed of. I don't think I've ever met anyone that dreamed to be an insurance agent. No,
Okay.
that's not a,
Okay.
you just kind of fall in that career, in that career. You really do. You kind of just fall into it, or you have a family business and it's passed down. But what I've come to realize is that it's not so much I like being an insurance agent. I like to be of service.
And
I,
you
I,
do a tremendous job. You heard what I said? So we're gonna go ahead and give you your roses for that right now, because you do a
thank
tremendous.
you, thank you.
Yeah.
I
Brandon, what you got?
try.
What you got for it, bro?
Yeah, she does do a good job. And I don't want to share this where people think that they could do the same thing that we've done accidentally, right? We've on multiple occasions last minute have a rental property we're trying to get renovated or whatever have you. And just come through multiple times last minute. She might be stressed by the fact that we come in fourth quarter with 2 minutes left. But she comes through in the
Yeah.
clutch.
Yeah.
Yes, Lord.
It comes through in the clutch. You hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
But before we even
Go ahead.
yeah. So but before we even talk, because you didn't dream about this, right? So we want to get into your story. We want the Forteers out there in the world to know who you are, where you from, what did you dream about as a kid? We want to get into all of that. So, bro, go ahead. First question for what you got?
Nah, you summed it up really. So we want to go from where you started to how you got here, right? So I guess my first question would be is that did you see an example when you were a kid of service that kind of was the seed that grew as you got older and you started to determine what's your path? What was your career goal?
Not at all, unfortunately, not at all. I was I was raised in public housing. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. So in public housing, you don't see a lot of entrepreneurs. You don't see that. You don't see business owners and things like that. I was raised by my great grandmother, and she was 99 when she passed, and I was 18. So she was old my entire life, so it's not like, I could go to her and she knew what was going on, or the world was totally different from when she was a kid. So no, I didn't see a lot of that. I loved school. I loved school, but there was no money for college. My grandmother didn't know how to fill out a FAFSA form or grants or this and that. And she passed away. I was a senior in high school. It was a few months before my graduation. So I had to go to work. So, I mean, I've always worked. I worked since I was 15, but I went to work full time then. And I happened to start working in an insurance agency. Yeah.
So what kind of jobs did you have? So you say you started working at 15. What kind of jobs did you have?
McDonald's was the first, of course, McDonald's. I worked at McDonald's. Then I worked at a hotel as a cashier for the hotel. Then I went to work at the insurance company. And that was it. I came full circle. There was a new insurance company coming up, new in the field, and they promoted within. So you started at the very bottom in the file room. That was the bottom, and they promoted within. And I saw that. I was like, oh, okay. Okay. They're going to promote within. I don't care if I was a file clerk, whatever. I was going to be the best file clerk there was, because then I knew I was going to the mail room. Then I was going to other places, and that's kind of how it went full circle.
Wow. So all right. So you from Nashville, Tennessee. The projects, I've heard them call it Cashville, right? I don't know if they called it Cashville back then. Okay, Cashville, home of Young Buck. Yeah. So Cashville, Tennessee, the projects, great grandmother. But it's something about Tennessee that I got a question about this, because we had a guest from Tennessee. Shout out to Nash Dogs, Michael Spencer. And he also talked about working at a young age. Randall, I believe he said he was like, what, 12 or 13 having a job?
Yeah, he was working before he was even legal.
Yeah. So is that a thing in Tennessee? Like kids just get like full-blown jobs when they're not even of
Depends on, what type of lifestyle, where you're from. I mean, you can get a permit at 15 to work. I was able to work at 15 and a half, so I had a permit, but just depends on, where you are. There were a lot of kids that in school with me, they worked full-time jobs and went to school full-time.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they
I
were
only
working
worked
8 hours.
part-time, full-time jobs.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you just didn't have it. You had to, especially with my grandmother. Of course, we were not going to have name brand anything. We were not going to, none of that. So if you wanted
So
anything,
yeah. So I heard you say we, right? So talk to us. Siblings. How many in the household? Like, were
it was
y'all
three. I
deep?
have two siblings. Two. Well, I had two older siblings. Unfortunately, I lost my brother a couple years ago. One of them,
Okay. Okay.
one that's right above me. So there were three of us. I was the youngest and the only girl.
Oh wow. So you
Yeah.
grew up hardcore.
And were they all raised by your grandmother? Like you and
Yes.
your two siblings? Okay.
Yeah. We were always
What's
now. My mom, I'll tell everyone she wasn't the best mother as far as I just don't think she was ready to be a mother. She was still in her 20s when she had us, but she turned out to be the world's best grandmother. She feels like that God gave her another chance with her grandkids. But unfortunately, I lost her also a couple years ago. I lost my brother and her within 16 months of each other. But
Oh
you know,
wow. Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
it was rough. Yeah,
Gotcha.
last couple of years have been rough. But she, we were left with my grandmother loved us. We did not. I mean, when you're in the projects with other kids, they're just like you.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't know what
That's
you're
right.
missing.
That's right. That's right. I want to say something though, because first of all, we definitely commend you because you know how to separate business and personal very well. And I think I do recall you mentioning something, but we were still blowing your phone up. I know I was during that time. And
Yeah.
it didn't even feel like anything changed.
It
I
was
don't know
rough.
how did you do it? How did you not miss a
Only my
beat?
faith. That's nothing but
Oh,
God. It's
yeah,
nothing but God. Nothing
yeah,
but. Now, you kind of expect to lose your parents before you pass. You kind of
yeah, yeah.
expect that she was not really, really sick, but a little sick, but nothing in this world could have prepared me to lose a sibling. Now that was rough because my brother and I, that was my very best friend in life. So that was my first best friend. He played jacks with me, played Easy Bake Oven. When you're only girl in the projects raised by your grandmother, you can't go too many places. So you were in the house a lot because girls did not do the same as boys.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
one that would take time and play with me, before he got to go hang out with his friends and stuff. So that one was rough. That was really rough. Yeah. And he hadn't been sick or anything. He was just out of the blue. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
man.
yeah. But just my faith. It's nothing but. I would not, I wouldn't be anywhere without God on my
Yeah,
side.
yeah. Amen.
Everything goes back to him. Everything.
Amen. Amen. So my question to you, so growing up in the projects with you say your great grandmother?
My great grandmother.
Your great grandmother. Okay.
Yeah.
So how was it with your mom not in the house and you didn't go to your grandmother, you went to your great grandmother,
My
right?
great grandmother.
And you were in the project. So like was that the norm during that time period? Or
Yeah, you had a lot of, that, but you had a lot of that, because and you still see it now too with the generations of grandmothers. My mother's mom passed away at childbirth. So I never knew my grandmother. So the great grandmother I lived with was my father's mom. And she also raised my mother and her sibling. So she
gotcha.
was raised by the
That's how
same
the
grandmother.
skip happened. The skip of the
Yeah.
general. Got it.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I didn't know the grandparents, but knew the great grandparents.
What about your dad? Did you know your dad?
I did. He was in my life until I was about 5 years old. And then him and my mom both. That's when they both just kind of, went their own way, did their own thing. So, and left us with my grandmother.
Wow.
Man, so at 18, essentially, you're saying that, you know how there's a monarch, there's a head of the house of the family, right? You're saying at 18, all that was kind of gone. It was just.
Oh, yeah. I was on my own. Yeah. Come 18, I was, in essence, I was homeless come 18 because I was, once she passed away, that's the public housing. You can't live there, by yourself. So once she passed away and they got wind that she did pass away because my brother and I, we were still in the household.
No,
for a
I
couple
know that's
months.
right. I know that's right. Y'all not gonna tell
Paid
them.
the rent.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
paid the rent, and
yeah,
everything for a couple months.
yeah,
But it's gonna always get back. So
yeah.
once she did that, I went to stay with a friend just until I graduated high school. I was only supposed to be there until I graduated. I didn't want to leave until I graduated, and then I was supposed to move to Indiana and live with my aunt, like my brothers. They went to Indiana. But once I did, I didn't go. I stayed in
So
Tennessee.
hold on. So your brothers went to Indiana,
Uh-huh.
and you stayed in Tennessee with a friend to graduate.
Yep, just to graduate was supposed to be. That's it. I was like, after that, you're coming here. You cannot. But I was 18, so she couldn't really make me. But that was the plan. But then the plan just changed.
So all right. So I'm just curious. So 18 years old, you don't leave to go to Indiana, right?
No.
What was his name?
It was not. It wasn't.
I'm just saying. I'm just, like,
It
because
wasn't.
I know it wasn't your husband at that time. Y'all didn't meet yet, right?
No.
Okay.
We didn't know
So
each other then. We didn't even know each other then.
yeah. So we're gonna work up to that. So who was it? Who was the?
All of them a business. This story I don't share a lot, and God has been convicting me with that because it's not my story. So if God is brought me through it, I'm supposed to share it. So God has really been convicting me with that, but I don't share my story. And a lot of us like, well, you should. I'm like, no. The reason I stayed in Nashville actually is my mom was incarcerated in Nashville, and I did not want to leave her by herself. Wow. I just felt like I need to still be there, even though she's not, I still wanted to be there. So, and my aunt was very upset about that because she feel that, I was a child still and you shouldn't do that. But I did, but it worked out.
So what did that look like, right? So because you stayed with a friend for a couple months until you graduated, right? And you had an opportunity to have a home with your aunt, but then you forego that to stay in Nashville for your mom. How did you work? Like, what did you do to survive?
She's been working since she was 15, brother.
I
that's
kept
different than
working.
you having your own apartment with. So I'm trying to get.
I did. I got my own. I had my minimum wage at that time was $3.35 an hour.
How much?
$3.35 an hour. That was minimum wage. I was still working in McDonald's. When I look back over it,
nobody but God.
Nobody but. I got my own apartment at 18. I was like almost 19 because when I graduated in May, I turned 19 that January. So I had my own apartment, still working at McDonald's at that time. I was working full time, but it still was, I was like, how did I pay this rent? How did I do this? But I never got a disconnect notice, never got an eviction notice. Any of that. I had my own place.
That's dope.
Yeah, that's dope. All right, so you make the decision to say, hey, I want to remain here close to my mom, which is great because, we have heard stories of individuals whose parents either incarcerated, on drugs, left them. They have like a very harsh heart towards their parents, right? But it seemed like for you that you was compassionate, still wanting to have that bond with her, and I just commend you for that. That's awesome.
It got to that. It got to that point.
Okay.
Because it was, it was a lot of resentment. Like, how could you leave us? How do you leave your own child? Who does that? So once I really, we had to really deal with that. But I thank God every day that we got past that and our relationship was the best before she passed. So I got another opportunity. So I thank God that he did not take her before we were able to get that together.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. All right. So move us forward. So you go from McDonald's to this insurance agency, right?
It's a miracle.
All right. And you got your own apartment still, right? Working insurance agency. Okay. So what was next?
So in high school, they asked, what do you want to be when you grow up, or whatever your senior quote. And I said, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. At that time, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to own my own business. I've always been my own person. I mean, I started to go to the military, then I thought about that. I was like, I don't do well with people telling me what to do. So I've always been a little, because I've had to be. I've been very independent my entire life. I had to be. So I kept working. And then once I started working in the insurance industry, it just kind of came full circle, because that is one industry you don't need a college degree. And that I used to feel intimidated by that, because I'm in this circle with all these agency owners and all these conferences, and I don't have that college degree. Mm-hmm. But God had to really convict me with that. It's like, who's in this room?
Come on.
Insurance agency owners. What are you? Insurance agency owner. That I put you in this room. Yeah. So, I just kept working, and I came full circle with that, as far as I had to, at that time, it was a little more difficult to get your license and things like that. So once I saw, this could be a really good career, and I don't have the money for college, just, okay, you need to go jump in both feet. So I did, I got licensed, I did all that. And then I met my husband, and he is from Nashville also. And once we got married, he's in the military. So once we got married, we
see that rock. Hold on, let me make sure we see that rock. We see that rock. Come on.
You ought to see the one we had when I first got married. You wouldn't be able to see it you need a microscope. But hey, after 29 years.
Come on now. Come on. 29. Wow.
Yeah, 29.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We came here to Virginia. And when I came here to Virginia, I had been working in insurance, and I had to find a job here because the company I was working with couldn't transfer. They didn't have an office here. They do now. And so I started working for Allstate, and I worked at a great agency. He was a great mentor, and he really encouraged me to open my own agency. He's like, Angela, I'm doing you a disservice. He said, you run my office. I don't have to worry about anything. You really need to have your own office.
Wow.
He said, I do not want to lose you.
Oh, okay.
That sounds like a story for somebody. We had somebody else on the podcast who had a similar story, right? And shout out to the mentors. Shout out to the leaders in the room, in the building, who don't get away of their mentees, right? Yes. Some people want to keep you in the box because they know that you're, for them, a better person in the box to help them out. But to acknowledge you and say, hey, I'm not doing that. Like, you've already hit the ceiling with me. You're better off going somewhere else to be able to continue to grow and hit the moon instead of just being on the earth level with me. So that's dope that he did that. And we had Money Briggs. Money Briggs had the same situation where he was working. He said he was basically running shop for this guy, and this guy said the exact same thing. So that's dope. That's dope that they step aside to let you grow.
Yeah. And that's what really prompted me to do it. So I'm so grateful to him. I am. He's like, Angela, I cannot hold you back. You got to have your own agency. He said, I have never been able to take vacations and not worry about things. When you're here, he's like, I'm just holding you back. He said, whatever I need to do to help you, get out there and do that. Let's do that. Let's look at that. So, yeah.
So question, before he said that to you, did you have any inkling or itch yourself to want to take on ownership, or were you comfortable just being where you were at until he said something to you?
No, actually I did, but I didn't know about how to go about it. And I didn't really know the difference between what's called a captive agent and a independent agent. So once we sat down and talked about it, and I actually was pre-approved to buy an Allstate agency in Virginia Beach, but right before the transaction was supposed to happen, Allstate stopped appointing new agents. They said, no, we're too saturated, not going to do it. And that was nothing but a blessing in disguise. Nothing but. So that forced me to go independent, because I always worked for a captive. Like, he was a captive agent. So I really thought about opening an agency, but I didn't really know how am I going to do this? I just had a baby. My child wasn't even 2 years old. So I was like, how am I going to do this? So, but once he, brought it up and we sat down and really hashed it out and talked about it, I was like, oh, I could do this. I could do this.
Can you share for the audience, the listeners, the viewers, what is a captive agent? What does that mean?
Captives are like Allstates and State Farms. They can only write for that one company. That's it.
Oh, okay.
They're not necessarily employees of the company, but they have guidelines that they have to be, their hours have to be a certain hours. You have to be open. You can only do this. You can only do that. Independents like myself, I'm able to write for several different companies. So
Got
that
it.
same captive, you talking about something that came full circle. Just last week, that same captive agent that worked for him for 9 years in Virginia Beach called me to write his policy. So I'm now his agent.
Wow. Come on.
I just looked at that. I said, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because Allstate is not writing commercial business anymore. So his own office that he owns that houses his insurance agency, he couldn't write it anymore. So he had to call me to write his policy.
All right. So that's something that, we want you all to think about, right? You said Allstate does not do commercial
right.
policies.
They're not doing commercial insurance anymore. So they're getting out of that. Like all of you all's policies are considered commercial, but they're getting out of that market. So
well, we don't go with Allstate anyway. We go to Turntine. We go to Turntine. So I'm just saying, right? Yeah, I'm just saying. So all right, so all right, so you get married, you have your son, right? Mm-hmm. And your husband is in the military.
Yes.
And you are managing the business. Now, how does that work when it comes to him having to, go out on deployment?
Ooh, that was rough. So the good thing is I did have a husband. So me taking that leap of faith, my husband was still able to sustain the household. As the word says, I'm supposed to be the help meet.
That's right.
So if I stop working, we shouldn't stop eating. So, I was able to step out on faith and not get a salary because when I opened the agency, you have to realize I had 0 clients. I opened a scratch agency. I didn't buy an agency. So no one knows my phone number. No one knows anything. I had to.
But you didn't have a book of business. So, wow. So you started with no book of business, meaning you had to go out and basically hit the ground and get this business yourself. So you're branding a brand new company, and you don't have the marketing dollars to compete with the Allstates and the State Farms and BJ Willie and his billboards all over the place, for instance, right?
Yes.
So
State Farm pays for that stuff,
Right.
They buy their computers, they buy their phones, they even give them a stipend for rent, all of that. If you're a captive. But when you're independent, it's all on you. Your marketing, your everything is all on you. So you first have to get the appointments, so I had to it's very hard to get an Erie appointment. That's what my main carrier I write for. It's very hard to get an appointment with them. But once I got that appointment, the other appointments came pretty easy because they know what Erie takes you through. So you get appointed to write business with these companies. So now I'm appointed, I'm a authorized agent to do business with this company. So now I got to find the business. Because, some people you can buy an agency and become, the agency owner that way. So I didn't buy an agency. I started scratch.
So what does that look like? We have somebody watching and they're interested in opening an insurance agency, right? Now, as far as opening a real estate agency, I know what that process looks like, right? But for insurance, can you kind of walk us through the steps of what does that look like for someone who's watching and they're saying, you know what, man, I'm thinking about it, right? And maybe they're not in a position to buy a book of business. So they're not looking to buy a Farmers or Allstate or State Farm. Like they want to go from the ground up. And maybe they're licensed, right? They're working for someone, but they're looking to say, I'm ready to branch out and do this thing. What does that look like? What are those, just some of those steps?
First, you want to be licensed. You need to get your license. And there's different type of license to what you want to do. If you want to write homeowners insurance, auto insurance, commercial, that's called PNC, property and casualty. So if you want to do that only, you can get just that license. If you want to sell life insurance and health insurance and annuities, that's another license. So I hold all 4, so I can write pretty much everything other than securities. That's a different license. So you get licensed. If you're going independent, you seek out those companies for appointments. So you get your appointments, and if you're doing scratch, you really have to be conscious of the overhead. Like you cannot, a lot of it is going to be you working by yourself. Unless you have money to pay a staff right away, And to me, it's a waste because you're not going to have a need for staff right away. So I had to work, a few years, just me. So I didn't take a day off. I went to work sick. If I was sick, I still had to be there. I was still building that business. In the beginning, first few months, but when you start building it and then the phone calls start coming in, then I'm limited about how often I can go out because now I'm attached to this phone. So you can, depending on the company, like independent, you can actually start in your home if you want a home office. I didn't want that. I didn't want people coming to my home. So I went into an agency at Washington Square Mall. That's where my first office was.
Mr. Damiani. That's right. That's
They
right.
took a chance on me, and I went in. He had a tenant already there that had a bigger office that wasn't really using much, so I rented one small office space from him until I got the book of business built.
Yeah. He gave me my first office, $125 a month. I won't forget.
Yep. I won't forget him. I will not. He took a chance on me, and he was awesome. But I had some security in knowing that the bills at home were going to get paid. But it's not as hard as people think. And that's what I really try to tell them. You don't have a college degree. Insurance is an awesome opportunity. But when you get into insurance, usually you stay there, you find a good agency, you stay and retire, or you open your own agency. That's usually how it happens. And so insurance is awesome. You can still, just because you don't have a college degree doesn't mean you have to work at McDonald's. Doesn't mean that that's the only thing that you're going to be able to do. Doesn't mean that you won't ever make six figures.
Come on.
This magic six-figure number or whatever, you go past that, because it's to you. It's how hard you're going to work. And when it's something that's attached to sales and things, you determine that, how hard are you going to work? How much work do you want to put in? How much do you want to get out? So, it was a lot of sacrifice. I had to work those hours, alone, no vacations, no anything until the business got up and running. But a lot of times what we do, and you all know, I'm sure, we get so busy working in the business that we don't work on the business.
Yeah.
So,
oh man, you talking.
So it's not easy. I have people all the time say, well, you're the owner. You can just close when you want to. I wouldn't have it. I can't do that.
So here's the thing, and I want people to understand it because you said a lot, right? And this really speaks to your husband, because when you are starting a brand new business with no book of business and you're starting from the bottom, and you're wearing those multiple hats, right? That's long hours. Yes. Those are hours away from home, away from the family, right? And now that I'm thinking about it, Angela, I don't know how you did a full-time business, full-time mom, full-time wife, and you was helping out with youth football, right?
I know, right?
Because you remember, I was one of the coaches, and y'all was holding it down. Y'all was holding down the Titans.
Those days. Oh,
come on now.
Gosh, those days were so long. And then I had to do all the books on the back end to get you all's books and put them in the system and all that.
I remember making sure we had our books turned in on time. How did you do it?
A lot.
Like, wow.
There was a lot of nights, a lot of weekends, a lot of, just kind of juggling it and make it work. And I had a little one, but anything that's worth having you got to work for it. So I had a husband that was going out on deployment sometimes too.
Wow.
So
I got
a good village at that time.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you started off this podcast. Most people, when we ask them what their forte is, they go straight into what they actually do. But you took it a little bit deeper and you said how that shows up. You do this because it's you providing service and your passion is providing service. And I think that's how you did it. To Dom's question is, how did you be a full-time mom? How did you be a full-time wife? How did you be an insurance agent owner? And how did you support the football team? It's all people facing, and you're providing service to each of those different groups of people. And I think that's a testament to that passion. So when those late hours occur, and this is me going back to the entrepreneur spirit. The entrepreneur spirit is not, yes, money becomes a factor, right? And yes, money is great, and it's incentive to keep on pushing, but it can't be the only thing. It has to be something about what you're doing that allows you to stay up with your eyes red and still want to grind.
Yeah.
Right? Like no one's working to the bone to not make money, but it can't be the only thing, because at some point money's not going to be enough to want you to keep you in the game and keep you trying to fight this uphill battle. When most people are quitting, you still there, and it has to be some level of passion. It has
You gotta love it. You gotta love it. You gotta love it.
I tell people all the time, you gotta find something you love to do, and doesn't feel like work. So when I was working in insurance, when I first started, I didn't know anything about insurance. Insurance, it was so like, oh my gosh, you pick up a dictionary and it's in a foreign language. I'm like, what is this? It's boring. It's, but when I saw the lack of knowledge that people had when it came to insurance, especially people of color, I said, no. I want to educate people to make informed decisions. You need to know this. Not, some people, I just want to give me the bottom line, how much it's going to cost. No, that's not what we're doing.
Let's dig into that, Angela. Dig into that, because you have been so helpful in educating all of us, right, when it comes to policy. And I think it's important because people, especially in our community, we always want the cheapest.
That's it.
Right?
Always.
Give me the cheapest. And that's not good, especially if the worst of the worst happens to you, right? And then when it comes to, let's say you have to file a claim, because I remember you said something to me before, and I didn't know it, right? Because I'm just thinking like, man, listen, I want them to cut the check. You was like, you sure you want to file a claim for that? Because it can increase your premium, right? Yeah. And it was something small. You was like, I think you can just pay for that out of your pocket. Yeah. And I'm thinking like, no, I'm about to just, let's. He was like, you sure you want to? Because if it's only $250, so like, just pay somebody. And I didn't know that once you file a claim, that's actually a negative. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So can you help our viewers out with that real quick? Because I think that's important for them to know.
And that's the main thing that they say, well, that's the reason I'm paying insurance. But, homeowners, especially homeowners claims are not your just run-of-the-mill, like an auto windshield, something like that. Homeowners claims are big claims that you wouldn't otherwise be able to handle yourself. I mean, everyone does not have a reserve. Don't get me wrong. I choose to have a higher deductible because I have a reserve for that and save on the premium. What I was telling you is that, Dominique, what about you filed this one claim on this property? You own so many properties. What if we have a storm and all of you are in this area? Then every one of your properties could be damaged. Every one of them. Mm. But now you've got so many claims that no one wants to write you. Usually home is your biggest asset. So that's the one, and that's what's happening. Homeowners guidelines in this area where they're cracking down on them. They're really strict with claims and things because and people say, well, I have paid. You will never pay into a policy as much as the potential the insurance company has to pay out on that.
Hold on, say that again. That's good.
I'm never gonna pay $400,000 into a policy for my home. But if my home is a total loss, they're gonna pay me $400,000. Yeah. So you'll never, insurance is intangible. You can't touch it. You never want to have to use it, but you have to have it. So that's when it leaves a bad taste in their mouth about insurance. It's got a really bad rep. Like you're crooked, like back in the day, those agents, you remember come to your grandmother's houses
yeah.
They were ripping people off, and so you get a really bad taste in your mouth when it comes to an insurance agent. So I think people appreciate my honesty, because I treat them like I would want to be treated. I want you to tell me, sell me a policy that you would get for yourself, or whatever. But you just need to really know, because the worst time is to have a claim. And that's when you find out you don't have the right insurance, things like that.
So I want to give this nugget, because you helped me out with this too, right? This was years ago. You mentioned this to me. You was like, hey, I think it's time for you to do, what is it, like a blanket policy where you put all of your, instead of paying these individual premiums, you just put it all under one, right? So if you are a real estate investor and you're watching and you've got multiple properties, right, you can actually put it under that one commercial policy instead of you paying, those separate, right? And they can save you. I want to, because you're ready to close out, but I got to ask this question. In Florida, in California, insurances is crazy. Like Florida people don't even have insurance.
Yeah, it's too expensive. If they can find a company to write it, just like with California and the wildfires and things. But the insurance commissioner in those states, though, they've got to take a more active role. They've got to stand up and say, because an insurance commissioner can do that. They can come and say, no, you all are going to pay these policies that you all took this fire coverage off, because right before those fires, a lot of companies, they like State Farm took off the fire coverage and things like that. So the insurance commissioner can stand up, and make them come back, do what they need to do in that area. So sometimes it's tricky, but you can go bankrupt in one of those areas.
Right. So you said they took it off, right?
Yeah. Some of them.
Most of your clients.
Some said, okay, we'll still insure you, but not for fire.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, do they communicate that? Because I'll be honest, I don't think most people actually read everything when it comes to their policy, right? They just say, "Hey, Angela, I need to get this property insured," and they look at the last page, the bottom line, right? Your total premium is right. And most people probably don't even look at deductible costs. Can you talk about that? Like, what's the thing about deductible? Like, if it's high, if it's low, if your premium is high. Yeah, help us out with that real quick.
Some things too, but right now everything is going up. So we are all looking at ways to save. Even in your home, you're looking at those streaming services. Like, do I really need this many? So what we're doing we always reach out on renewals and things. The higher your deductible, the lower the premium. But you don't want a deductible so high that if something happens, you couldn't afford the deductible. So you've got to find your level of comfort. If I raise my deductible of my homeowner's policy to $2,500, I'll save $400 or $500 a year. Do I want to take that $400 or $500 a year savings? Or if I had to come up with $2,500, would that be a hardship? So that's how you have to think about it. $2,500 to you, maybe $25,000 to someone else. But if you can afford on homeowners, especially homeowners, to raise those deductibles, because the higher your deductible means you're taking on more of the risk. So of course your premium is going to be lower. So that's something to look at right now, in certain areas. But those are deductibles, but you have to also look at if it has a percentage deductible. People don't look at any of this. Who reads those policies? No one reads those policies. So some of the policies will say your deductible is $1,000 for this, this, and this. But if you have damage from a hurricane or a wind and hailstorm, then your deductible is no longer this. It's a percentage of what you insure your home at. So if you insure your home, depending on whatever it is, that deductible could be huge, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. But no one looks at that. And the majority of the claims that we have in this area are wind and hail. Where you are. So, but if that comes into being, that's what an agent is supposed to do. That's what they're supposed to do. So
that's why they call you. That's why they need to call you.
When we take this license oath, we study. That is part of it. You are deemed the professional. Anytime if that client sues you because you didn't explain this to them and whatever, 9 times out of 10, the courts decide. They always side with the client.
What other insurance do you do? Do you do like business insurance? Like, we talked about a lot of insurance for assets, but what about to protect the company or the owner of the company? Do you do any insurances that help assist with that?
I called her today about one.
Yes, you did. Yeah, we do. We write, commercial policies, professional liability, errors and omissions, just depends on, errors and omissions, all kind of that. So, we do all of that. I do everything but health insurance. I just don't get into the health insurance market. It's just it's too complicated.
Got it. That area.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, all right, man. Ask because we on time.
Yeah.
Man. Go
so
ask
we always close out our episodes asking, what is your 1 to 5 year goals?
I have just started working with a nonprofit that's doing a lot with. I work with several, but this one has really caught my heart. That's working with incarceration, like kids of incarcerated, things like that. And one of the things that I want to establish is a career center. So, helping those individuals that are the parents of have children that are incarcerated and not necessarily able to go to college, things like that, showing them that, it's still careers out there that you don't have to be looked at differently because you don't have a college degree. Because I went through that, feeling, less than because I didn't have this degree. And I don't think I could be any higher than where I am now with that degree. It just didn't, it worked out perfect for me. So one of the things I want to get that established, that arm of it, as far as showing different, avenues to, you can still have a professional career. So we're starting a career institute with that.
That's
I
good.
love it. I go back to high schools. I was able to go back to the same high school I graduated from and talk to them about that. So, I talk to schools now about, we've got to stop making our kids think that if you don't have a college degree that you're less than. You know how much plumbers and electricians get paid?
Listen. I don't have a college degree. I represent NSU on behalf of my wife because I spent a lot of time there, coming to visit her. But listen, I'm with you, right? I'm definitely with you on that. But so put me down if you need me to come speak on state.
Yes, I've already got it in the plan. I wrote the plan out. I've already got you in there. Honestly, I'm telling the truth. Yeah, because we've got to realize that first and foremost, all credit goes to God, of course.
Yeah.
First and foremost. I can tell you how many people told me, "Oh, Angela, that business is going to fail." Most businesses fail within the first 2 to 3 years. And it was on the football field at the Titans. And this lady said it. And that probably was the 10th person. And that was it. And that's when she called it. I said, well, you know what? I'm glad I believe the report of the Lord and not what people say. Not what people say. And I used to be really kind of holding back and discussing that stuff because I'm the person that never wants to brag. But God has been dealing with me on this. Like, why are you not telling people what I'm doing for you?
Brag on him. That's it.
Why are you not doing? But I have never, the business has never, ever been in the red. And I've owned the agency 19 years.
Ooh.
It has always
Talk that talk. Talk that talk.
That's a
talk
flex
that
right
talk.
there. That's a flex right there.
I've never had to go into my own savings to do anything with the business. Business has always turned a profit. I was able to buy the building I'm in to do.
Talk that talk. Come on, let's go. Yeah. And it's a nice building, by the way. It's a nice building.
It's mortgage free now. To God be the glory. So to God, where's God? It's God. So now
man.
That's a fire. You need to throw some flames out there for that. It's mortgage free.
It's just God.
Yeah.
Mortgage free.
Yeah.
Mortgage
No college degree.
No,
Public housing.
So
public housing, right? Living with your great grandmother, in public housing. Working at McDonald's at 15 and a half years old, mom incarcerated. Like, you done went through
so much.
Listen. No silver spoon. You had that plastic spoon that y'all had to keep reusing because we couldn't throw them away, right? That's just how we was raised. You better not throw that plastic spoon away, right? You better wash that thing off, right? And wow, and look what God is doing. And when people call your office, we get greeted very well by your staff. So how can people get in contact with you? For those that want to get in contact with you, they want your services, right? How can they get in contact?
You can on the web, of course. It's www.turntine, T as in Tom, URNTINEINS.com. TurntineInsurance.com on Facebook, Turntine Insurance on Instagram. Office phone number 757-923-4471.
You got it. Hey, we appreciate it, sis. We appreciate it.
It's been real. It's been great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Hold tight real quick. Sis, hold on right quick. Coming right back to you. Bro.
Yeah, man.
Man, bro.
Another one.
Hey,
was
so
good.
I wanted, because you were talking about you don't need a college degree to be a professional, right? And I think I had a conversation with somebody years ago, right? A college degree is just a certificate saying that you went to some institution that said you know how to learn at a certain pace to then regurgitate that information out for somebody else to grade, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you are better than somebody else. It doesn't mean that you have a better capability. It just said you went to an institution gave you a certificate saying you're capable of doing this. To those who don't go to college, you're capable of doing that, especially in the day and age with YouTube and all the access that you have at the fingertips of your phone.
Yeah.
There's multiple certificates that you could get outside of the confines of a brick and mortar institution like your colleges, right? You're able to do that on your own for a lot less cheaper than what it's cost you. Like I've done this. Like I've done certificate programs. I've done like bachelor's and master's degrees, right? And I feel like certificates are way more useful of my time than going to take extra classes that don't really pertain to my ultimate goal of what I'm trying to do, right? So don't let college be the deterrent factor on why you feel like you can't succeed. That's what I just want to just further push that home.
Absolutely, man. Unless you're going to get that NIL money, go get your bag.
Yeah,
athletes, go get your bag. Go get your NIL money.
Invest in real estate.
That's right. Invested in real estate.
It's called Angela to be able to write those policies for those
athletes. Absolutely. Well, listen, y'all, we out of here. This is the Forte Podcast.
Peace.
I'll go to www.fortecommunity.com. www.forte